Mark, is Antonio Brown the biggest problem in Pittsburgh?
Oh, he's a big problem. There's no question. Is he the biggest problem? No, he's not the biggest problem. I think one thing, he's been empowered. He's been empowered to be a turd, and that's what it comes down to. Mike Tomlin has a mantra: I'm going to put up with it until I can replace it. Like, what kind of mantra is that? Right? I'll put up with you in the ultimate team game, being the ultimate selfish player. I'll put up with that because of your production. Well, what message does it send? I always say, what message does it send to the other 53 guys? I understand that not everybody's created equal, right? So I understand that sometimes you make concessions for star players to a degree, right? So you're not all treated equal, but you have to be treated fairly. And what you create in a situation like that is you create animosity. Animosity within your own locker room, and then animosity from upstairs to downstairs, from the coaches' offices and the management offices to the locker room, to the players. And ultimately, here's the deal. Mike Tomlin didn't play in the NFL. He was a football player, but he didn't play in the NFL because he wasn't talented enough. Wasn't good enough to play in the National Football League. And there's no shame in that. There is absolutely no shame in not being able good enough to be in the National Football League.
Bill Belichick didn't play.
Right.
He's one of the greatest coaches who,
There's
a lot of guys like that.
There is no shame in that. But I'm telling you, in that locker room, when you create that division and you create that animosity, not only between the players, but between upstairs and downstairs, man, that's a tough situation to overcome. There's a reason they're one of the most talented teams in the National Football League, and they're sitting out watching the playoffs right where you and I are watching the playoffs, right from their couches.
Are you saying Tomlin may not understand that dynamic because he never was a part of it as a player?
Well, I don't know that he. Maybe. I don't know why he doesn't understand that he is creating animosity within his own locker room by allowing those things to happen. I mean, you hear all kinds. I mean, this is par for the course.
Right. But
you hear these stories about Antonio Brown all the time.
But this might be the reason that they've been the underachievers that they have. Because you know this, Mark. You look on paper and you say they're loaded. They should be making moves. They haven't won a Super Bowl since 2008, right? A decade now. Mm-hmm. We're in 2019. And you're right. I think it's a culture there where guys are allowed to get away with so much stuff. Mostly, and you know this because you played, guys who are that talented get a lot of leeway. But it's gotten out of control to where it just, to me, seems like a number of distractions. And not just him. Because there's other things. Big Ben's gone on the radio and ripped teammates and made it other people's fault and not him and hasn't played well. There's been all kinds of other stuff that's going on with them. Even the Le'Veon Bell situation where you had teammates ripping him, because he is trying to secure a future for his family and him. And that was had you ever seen that from players?
No.
Where a guy is trying to get paid.
Right.
I wonder, if
that's a culture, though.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the culture that, I don't know if Le'Veon was doing things that obviously he's had his issues too, that guys just feel like there's a lack of discipline. So they were willing to call him out, what I think, look, I agree with you. I think Antonio's a huge problem, but the bigger problem is the culture from top down. And I think Tomlin's a good coach. I wouldn't fire him right now necessarily.
Hard to fire a guy who doesn't even have a losing record.
Right. My question is this. Can you as a head coach, if he's been a player's coach for this whole time there, can he all of a sudden next year be the disciplinarian, and the hard guy that now, changes the culture? Or are players going to think that's phony and see through it, and then it may even get worse?
Well, I mean, I think that, one, I agree with you. I think he's a good coach. I don't think there's any question that he's been a good coach. I think he's a bad manager of people. And when you look at that, can you change that culture? I think the first part of changing that culture is you have got to be able to walk in there and say, hey, guys, I have put up with this. I have made these mistakes. And from this point forward, I'm no longer making those mistakes. But then you have to, if you're gonna put that down, you're gonna throw that out there, then you have to adhere to that. Right. You've got to be able to maintain that. There's two types of people in this world. People that walk into a room and energize it, and people who walk out of a room and energize it. Antonio Brown walks out of the locker room and it's energized. Good, he's gone. And you can see that going on right now. But that, again, I think that starts from top. I think it starts from Tomlin.
But, Mark, they can't do anything with him with his contract, probably untradeable, right? He's 31. Can they do something? What?
Well, I mean, one thing about this league that I know to be true, because I spent a lot of time in it, is that most organizations and most coaches feel there's enough ego there. I always said this. You think the egos are big downstairs in the locker room? Walk upstairs, the coaches' offices, right? I mean, there's not a coach that doesn't think that under my expert tutelage I can't fix him, right? So there will be, I mean, the guy is as productive as you can be, so there will be a market. Now, one, I just don't think everybody has a dependent position. Everybody depends on one another. That's why it's the ultimate team game, right? I don't understand how receivers get to the point where they don't understand that 10 other guys have to do their jobs exceptionally well for me to touch a ball.
Right.
Like, where do you lose that? Like, where did you become
because
so self-absorbed?
Because the receiver gets all the glory because people don't see all the other stuff.
Right.
And where does the camera focus in? The guy who caught it, and he's in the end zone. So,
right. Yeah.
So I think that's where the inflated
inflated self-value is. But I would say of all the dependent positions in the National Football League, the most dependent is the wide receiver. And so why you would spend New England has a model. They don't ever spend that much money on receivers. They go to Super Bowls. Like, there's a model there. Why you would make him your highest paid player or one of your highest paid players, why you would spend that kind of money on an Odell Beckham Jr. or an Antonio Brown or any of these guys is beyond me. It truly is. Yeah, he'll be tough to move because of how much money he's being paid right now. But again, I mean, it comes down to, do you have the intestinal fortitude to say, this is who we are, we've gotten away from it, we're going to get back to it, and if you don't want to play by our rules, you can sit here, we'll pay you, you'll be on the team, but you're not going to get a play.
They got enough talent where, I mean, Smith-Schuster now has, emerged as a number one receiver. Mm-hmm. James Washington, they're high on him. If you could get something for Antonio Brown, just something, you're not going to get equal value, but something decent. This team, when they let LeGarrette Blount go, Le'Veon Bell steps up. When they, this year, James Conner stepped up. I think they, in the name of changing the culture, if they could get a good trade for it, then I would do it. But I just don't think they're going to be able to get it.
I'm not so positive that everybody has to be a choir boy. And, there's always guys, and you want to be able to work with them. There's some guys who are just so talented, and it's hard for them to always toe the line, or do you know what I mean? And you just let them work. You play with guys like that. So I'm not so sure that Pittsburgh can be that team that you're talking about where you're giving up. Le'Veon Bell's going to be gone. You're going to trade AB, and Ben Roethlisberger is going the other way, quarterback-wise. You wind up stripping a team that should be in the mix every year that won't be if you make those kind of moves because you're just trying to clean up the locker room.
Right. But part of the other part is when you look at it and when you watch and you break down Pittsburgh, part of it is what you've allowed the identity to become. Like, you're going to let your quarterback sit in shotgun and throw the ball just about on every down, because you have so many talented players on the outside. I think a lot of kind of coordinator types get caught up into this. Like, they get caught up into philosophically, hey, all the rules are being bent to throwing the ball. We've got an all-star quarterback. We're going to throw it all over the place. And, yeah, you're going to make a lot of dynamic plays doing that, right? You're going to have a lot of what they call explosives, 20-plus yard plays, right? But the other part is the negative explosives, the interceptions, the other issues that come up with that, the sack strip fumbles and all those things. One of those, like 3 touchdowns, I mean, it takes 3 touchdowns or 3 big explosive plays or 4 big explosive plays to make up for one of those negative explosive plays. And those are the things. I mean, to me, I look at as talented as they are up front, philosophically, they have to come back more to balance than they are. I just always watch them on film. I go, they just refuse to do anything but essentially throw it because they've got so many weapons. Right. And that's a mindset with the Steelers right now.
They didn't even use Conner as much as you might think they could have, the way he was running the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about when they were winning championships. It was bus-driven, right? They were riding the bus. Right. They weren't flying to championships. They were bus riding to championships. And
so that sounds like sense. I was going to say, and it's been a long time since they won. So it sounds like they got to really do a big change about the philosophy of who they are. Where are the Steelers now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Are you just a pass-happy team, or are you going back to the basics of what got you championships?
Hey, J.J. Smith-Schuster, if you say, hey, we're going to go back to running the ball and we want you to get mixed up in the briar patch and start hitting people and doing those things, you know what he'd say? I'm in. I'm a football player. That's what AB, he'd be pouting on the sideline, you know, crying about not getting enough opportunities. This is the ultimate team game, man. And to win championships, if that's truly what it's all about, and I believe that it is, to truly be a championship caliber squad and a championship caliber team, you have to care more about the other guys on your team than you care about yourself. And I doubt that AB cares about anybody more than he cares about himself.
So with that being said, Mark, before we let you go, do you think this is something that AB can come back from in the locker room? Can he get that and earn that respect back in the locker room?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The locker room is one of the most forgiving places in the world. I mean, you know, in every locker room, you got 4 or 5 touch guys. Every locker room does. How do you manage your touch guys, right? And the problem is, if all your touch guys are the superstars, like, then who's gonna reel you in? Right. Like, who's gonna bring you together? And especially if the organization isn't gonna hold anybody accountable. You know what? It's really hard to hold people accountable as a player. You're a leader in that locker room. If the organization isn't going to back you when you're trying to hold Antonio Brown accountable, then you've lost. There's no way the locker room can police itself.
Yeah, there needs to be a big change in Pittsburgh. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.